The research center stood like a shining glass tower at the edge of the city. Every morning, scientists walked inside with files in their hands and big thoughts in their heads. They wore white coats, badges on their chests, and carried the confidence of people who were used to being called the smartest in the world. Among them moved a man no one paid much attention to. His name was Armin. He did not wear a coat or carry files. He pushed a cart with cleaning tools, a mop, and buckets. Armin was the janitor of the great center. He worked quietly, sweeping floors, cleaning windows, and fixing things when they broke. To the scientists, Armin was almost invisible. They spoke to him only when they wanted him to clear a mess or unlock a door. They never asked him what he thought about their projects or if he even understood them. Most assumed he could not possibly keep up with their level of knowledge. But Armin carried a secret. Behind his calm face and steady hands lived a mind sharper than any machine. Since his childhood, he had been different. Numbers danced in front of his eyes like bright stars. Puzzles that made other children frustrated came to him like simple games. He had once solved a 100-piece puzzle upside down, only by recognizing the shape of the pieces. Yet he never showed off. His family had lived a simple life, and Armin chose to do the same. The research center was working on something called Equation Z. It was not just another project. It was the project. Scientists said if they solved it, they could produce energy strong enough to light entire countries without fuel. They dreamed of ending power shortages, pollution, and high costs. Governments had invested huge sums of money, hoping the center would succeed. But Equation Z was a monster of numbers. For 5 years, the greatest minds had tried to tame it. Every time they reached the last step, the formula broke apart. They argued in rooms filled with chalkboards covered in symbols. They stayed awake at night, staring at endless pages of calculations. Yet the solution never came. Armin knew little about their formal titles or the awards they had won. What he noticed was their stress. He saw them throwing papers in frustration, heard them shouting in meetings, and sometimes found them asleep at their desks with cold coffee beside them. One evening, Armin was cleaning near the main conference room. The glass walls allowed him to see inside. The board was covered with numbers and diagrams, each written in different colors. The scientists inside were arguing again. One slammed a marker on the table and shouted that the equation had no end. Another said they had to find a new approach. A third simply sat with his head in his hands, silent and defeated. Armin paused with his mop. The numbers on the board pulled his eyes. To most people, it looked like a storm of confusing symbols. But to him, it was like a half-finished painting. He could see the missing strokes, the path where the numbers wanted to go. His heart beat faster. He wanted to walk in and tell them. But he was just the janitor. No one would listen. When the meeting ended, the scientists left in silence, carrying their worries with them. The room stood empty, except for the mess of chalk dust and papers on the floor. Armin quietly entered with his mop and broom. He walked to the board. His fingers touched the chalk resting in the tray. For a long moment, he stood still. Then, slowly, he picked it up. The numbers came to him at once. He wrote with steady strokes, filling the gaps the scientists could not see. Every symbol had a purpose, every step led to the next. His mind did not hesitate. He felt as if the answer had been waiting inside him for years, just waiting for the right moment. Lines spread across the board, neat and certain. Armin finished the last mark and stepped back. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. On the board, the once broken formula now stood complete. Equation Z had been solved. Armin looked at it with calm eyes. He did not smile or clap for himself. For him, it was simple. Just another puzzle he had seen and finished. He placed the chalk back in its tray, picked up his mop, and began cleaning the floor as if nothing had happened. When the scientists returned in the morning, they would not expect the janitor's handwriting to hold the answer they had been chasing for years. But the world was about to change, and it would start with the quiet man no one had noticed. The morning sun shone on the glass walls of the research center. Inside, the scientists gathered with heavy eyes and tired faces. They had spent another sleepless night trying to crack equation Z. Many of them doubted if the problem could ever be solved. Dr. Rashid, the head of the team, walked into the conference room first. He carried his usual notebook, filled with half-written calculations. But the moment he looked at the board, he froze. His notebook slipped from his hands and landed on the table with a soft thud. The board was no longer a storm of broken numbers. It was clear, neat, and complete. The equation that had haunted him and his team for years was standing there, perfectly solved. For a few seconds, Dr. Rashid simply stared, unable to breathe. One by one, the other scientists entered. Each stopped in their tracks. Their voices rose with shock. Some asked who had written it. Others ran to the board to check if it was a trick. "This cannot be real," whispered Dr. Nadia, who had worked on the project since its beginning. Her hands trembled as she traced the lines of chalk with her eyes. Dr. Rashid quickly called the others to test the solution. Papers flew across the tables as they wrote, checked, and rechecked every line. Hours passed. Computers were used to confirm the numbers. At the end, there was only one conclusion. The equation was correct. Silence filled the room, but it was not the silence of confusion this time. It was the silence of awe. They had been defeated by the problem for years, yet someone had solved it in a single night. But who? The handwriting was not like any of the scientists. It was larger, simpler, and written with unusual clarity. Dr. Rashid frowned. "Who entered this room last night?" he asked. The security team was called. Cameras were checked. Everyone gathered around the screen as the recording played. The footage showed the scientists leaving after the long meeting. Then, after a while, a figure entered. It was Armin, the janitor. The room buzzed with disbelief. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was impossible. Others shook their heads, refusing to accept it. But the video did not lie. They saw Armin walking in with his mop, looking at the board, and then picking up the chalk. His hand moved quickly and with confidence. By the time he stepped back, the solution was complete. He then calmly returned to cleaning as if nothing had happened. Dr. Nadia covered her mouth with her hands. "It was him," she whispered. "No," another scientist said firmly. "That is not possible. He is a janitor. He has no training." But the truth was already in front of them. Armin had solved the greatest problem of their time. Later that afternoon, Dr. Rashid asked for Armin to be brought into the room. The janitor entered quietly, holding his mop as usual. He looked at the group of scientists staring at him with wide eyes. "Armin," Dr. Rashid said slowly, "did you write this?" He pointed at the board. Armin's eyes followed his hand. The chalk marks were still fresh. He nodded once. "Yes." The room broke into a storm of questions. "How did you know the answer? Where did you learn mathematics like this? Do you realize what you have done?" Armin did not raise his voice. He simply said, "I saw the mistake. I fixed it." To him, it was nothing special. But to the scientists, it was everything. Years of research, billions of funding, sleepless nights, and endless failures all solved by the man who had been cleaning their floors. Dr. Rashid leaned forward, studying him closely. There was no pride in Armin's face, no arrogance. Just calm truth. Rashid realized then that this was not luck. This man's mind worked on a level none of them could match. Word spread quickly inside the building. Workers whispered in the hallways. Guards talked at the gates. Secretaries peeked into the conference room. Everyone wanted to see the janitor who had outsmarted the world's greatest scientists. By evening, the news had reached the higher officials. Calls came from the capital. The government wanted a full report. Who had solved equation Z? How had it been done? And most importantly, what would it mean for the future? For the first time in his life, Armin stood at the center of attention. But he remained the same quiet man. While the scientists celebrated, he went back to his cart and continued his work. He polished the floor until it shined, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But deep down, every person in the building knew the truth. Their world had changed. The janitor with the mop was not just another worker. He was a man with a mind beyond their imagination. And soon, the whole world would know his name. The next morning, the research center was no longer a quiet place. News of the solved equation had already reached government officials, business leaders, and even journalists. Black cars lined the front gates. Security was doubled. Everyone wanted to see the mystery person who had cracked the impossible. Inside, the scientists gathered again, but this time their faces were not tired. They were excited, though some still looked uneasy. They knew they had been beaten at their own game by the man who had always worked silently beside them. Dr. Rashid stood at the head of the table. "We cannot keep this hidden," he said. "The solution has already been confirmed. The world is waiting for answers. They want to know who did it." Dr. Nadia spoke carefully. "But will they believe us if we say a janitor solved it?" That was the question hanging in everyone's mind. The thought seemed too strange. Years of study, expensive education, endless research, all passed by a man who carried a mop. While they debated, Armin was once again walking through the hallways with his cart. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his steps were calm as always. He paid no attention to the commotion. People stared at him now, but he continued cleaning the windows as if it was an ordinary day. In the afternoon, government officials arrived. They were serious men in suits who demanded proof. The scientists showed them the equation on the board, explained the tests, and presented computer reports. Every piece confirmed the truth. The solution worked. Finally, one of the officials asked the question. "Who solved it?" The room went silent. All eyes turned toward Armin, who was standing in the corner, holding his mop. The official frowned. "Him." Dr. Rashid cleared his throat. "Yes. He solved it?" The official looked at Armin with disbelief. "You are telling me that your janitor has done what the greatest minds in the world could not?" Armin simply lowered his eyes. He was not looking for praise. He had only fixed what he saw as a mistake. The officials ordered Armin to demonstrate his skill. A fresh equation was placed on the board. It was a smaller version, something only advanced scientists could solve after hours of work. Armin stepped forward quietly, picked up the chalk, and began writing. His movements were smooth and certain. Within minutes, the solution appeared. The room was stunned again. One official leaned back in his chair, whispering, "This is beyond genius. His mind works like a living machine." By evening, the government made the decision. The story could not be hidden. It would inspire the country and perhaps the entire world. The press was called. Reporters flooded the building with cameras and microphones. They wanted to capture the face of the unknown genius. Armin, however, disliked the attention. When asked questions, he gave only short answers. "How did you solve it?" "I saw the pattern." "Did you study advanced mathematics?" "No." "What is your IQ?" "I never measured." The scientists had already tested him in secret. His score went beyond any record they had ever seen. Some whispered that it touched 900, a number no one thought possible. When the news was broadcast, people everywhere were shocked. A janitor had solved equation Z. Social media exploded with messages. Some celebrated him as a hero. Others doubted the story and said it must be fake. But the scientists and government confirmed it again and again. The proof was too strong to deny. Soon, universities began calling. Great professors wanted to meet him. Companies offered him positions with high salaries. Politicians promised him awards and medals. His face was printed on newspapers, shown on television, and shared across the internet. Yet Armin remained the same man. He still walked with his mop, still cleaned the floors, still avoided the spotlight. Fame did not change him. But change was coming whether he wanted it or not. For Equation Z was not just a puzzle. It was the key to a new world of energy. If handled wisely, it could bring light to dark cities, water to dry lands, and hope to millions of people. If handled poorly, it could also bring power to the wrong hands. That night, as the scientists celebrated in the lab, Armin walked outside to the quiet courtyard. He looked up at the stars. He did not care about medals or interviews. What mattered to him was simple truth. Problems were like knots, and knots were meant to be untied. But far away, powerful people were already planning how to control the discovery. They saw more than science. They saw profit, influence, and control. Armin had solved the puzzle, but he did not yet know that his life was about to change forever. In the days that followed, Armin's life turned upside down. The quiet hallways where he once moved unnoticed were now filled with reporters, photographers, and strangers who wanted to see him. Guards followed him wherever he went. Even when he tried to clean, people stopped him with questions or asked for a picture. The scientists who once ignored him now treated him with respect. They invited him to join their discussions, though Armin rarely spoke. He preferred silence, watching the numbers in his head rather than the noise of people around him. But his calmness only made others more curious. The government quickly stepped in. They held a press conference, announcing that Equation Z was solved and that the country would soon enter a new age of energy. They introduced Armin to the world as the man who made it possible. Cameras flashed, people clapped, but Armin stood quietly, holding his hands together, looking almost uncomfortable. Behind the public celebration, however, a darker side was unfolding. Other nations had heard about the discovery. They realized how powerful it could be. With Equation Z, energy would no longer be controlled by oil, gas, or coal. Whoever controlled this new formula could control the future. Secret meetings began. Foreign agents whispered in back rooms, planning how to get close to Armin. Wealthy companies sent offers, promising him money, houses, and luxury if he worked for them. Some tried to bribe officials to gain access to the formula. The pressure on the research center grew heavier with every passing day. One night, Dr. Rashid sat with Armin in his office. He looked tired, his forehead lined with worry. "Armin," he said softly, "you must understand. What you solved is not just science. It is power. Many will want it. Some may even try to take you away. You must be careful." Armin listened quietly. He understood more than Rashid thought. He had seen enough of the world to know how greed worked. Still, he felt no fear. For him, solving the equation was never about power. It was about completing something that was broken. But Rashid knew the danger was real. He ordered security to be tightened. Armed guards were placed at the gates. Only a few trusted scientists were allowed near the full details of the formula. Despite these efforts, tension grew inside the center. Some workers whispered that spies had already entered. Others feared someone would try to kidnap Armin. One evening, as Armin was leaving the building, two men in suits approached him. They spoke politely, but their voices carried a heavy tone. "Mr. Armin," one said, "our organization values people like you. We can offer you more than this place ever will. Come with us, and you will have freedom, wealth, and respect beyond imagination." Armin looked at them calmly and shook his head. I am fine where I am. The men's smiles faded. Think carefully, the second man said. Opportunities like this do not come twice. Without another word, Armin walked away. His refusal was simple, but it was enough to make the men exchange a cold glance. They would not give up easily. Inside the center, the scientists continued testing equations E. The results amazed them. With the formula, they could create a small device that powered an entire building. Machines ran without fuel, lights burned without wires, and engines moved without smoke. The possibilities were endless. Dr. Nadia once said, "This can save millions of lives. No more blackouts, no more pollution." But if the wrong people use it, it could also become the most dangerous weapon ever made. The weight of her words spread through the team. They realized they were no longer working only for science. They were standing at the edge of a new future, one that could either shine with hope or burn with destruction. Armin remained calm through it all. He spent his time solving small problems for the scientists, often fixing errors they could not even see. He never asked for reward, never demanded attention. But in silence, he began to sense the storm building around him. Outside the walls, powerful forces were moving. Governments were preparing strategies. Companies were gathering money. Agents were planning missions. All had one goal: to control the janitor with the 900 IQ. And though Armin never sought power, power had already begun to seek him. The research center had turned into a fortress. Guards checked every car at the gate. Security cameras followed every corner. Inside, scientists worked under heavy protection, while government officials watched their progress closely. Armin continued his simple routine. Every morning he carried his mop and tools, walking calmly through the shining hallways. But everyone now knew he was not just the janitor. He was the man who had solved the impossible. Some greeted him with respect. Others watched him with suspicion, wondering how a quiet cleaner could hold the key to the future of the world. Despite the strict protection, danger was getting closer. Foreign agents had already slipped into the city. They watched the center from a distance, waiting for a chance to act. Their goal was not the formula on paper but the man who had written it. They believed if they controlled Armin, they controlled everything. One evening, Armin stayed late in the laboratory. The scientists had asked him to check a new design for a generator. They trusted his eyes more than their computers. While they argued over numbers, Armin calmly drew a correction on the board, and once again the solution became clear. By the time he left the lab, the building was quiet. The hallways were empty, and the lights outside shone against the dark sky. As he walked toward the parking area, he noticed something unusual. A black van stood with its engine running. Two men stepped out. They were dressed in dark clothes, and their faces were hidden by caps. They moved quickly toward him. "Mr. Armin," one said in a low voice, "please come with us. Do not resist." Armin stopped. He did not panic. His sharp mind observed everything: their distance, their stance, the open door of the van. He understood their plan without a word. "I am not going with you," he said calmly. The men rushed forward, but at that moment, a shout came from behind. Security guards appeared, running toward the scene. The attackers tried to grab Armin, but he moved with surprising speed. Instead of struggling, he stepped aside, causing one of the men to stumble forward. The guards reached them within seconds, tackling both attackers to the ground. The van sped away before it could be stopped. The two men on the ground were caught and taken away. The incident spread through the center like fire. The scientists were shaken. Dr. Nadia held her head in her hands. "They will not stop. They will keep coming." Dr. Rashid ordered even stronger security. Now Armin could not leave the building without guards at his side. Some argued he should be taken to a hidden place. Others said he should be moved to the capital under government control. But Armin refused. "I am not a prisoner," he said firmly. "I will not live in a cage." His words carried weight. Though he spoke little, everyone listened. The officials agreed to let him stay at the center, but protection around him was doubled. That night, Armin sat alone in his small room. The world outside was moving like a storm, but inside his mind it was calm. He thought about the attack. He was not afraid for himself. What worried him was how far people would go for power. The formula he had solved was not just a tool for progress. It had become a prize for the greedy. The next morning, the scientists gathered again. They continued their work, but the atmosphere was heavy. Everyone knew the attack was only the beginning. One of the younger scientists asked, "Why not destroy the formula? If it is too dangerous, maybe it should not exist." Armin looked at him with steady eyes. "Knowledge cannot be destroyed. If I saw it, others will one day see it too. The answer is not to erase it. The answer is to guide it the right way." His words gave them pause. They realized he was not only a man of numbers but also of wisdom. Outside, the world was changing fast. Other countries demanded access to the discovery. Leaders held urgent meetings. Companies raised their offers, some even promising wealth beyond imagination. But behind the offers, danger kept growing. For Armin, life was no longer about mopping floors or cleaning windows. He had stepped into a battle he never asked for. His mind had solved the hardest problem in science, but now he faced an even harder one: how to protect knowledge from those who would use it for harm. The first attack had failed. But everyone knew the next one would come, and it would be stronger. The failed attack on Armin only increased the tension around the research center. Guards now stood at every door, vehicles were checked twice before entering, and the scientists worked under the constant shadow of fear. Everyone knew that the world outside was hungry for the secret. The formula had become more valuable than gold, more powerful than weapons. But Armin remained calm. He walked through the hallways with the same quiet steps, his mop still in his hands. Fame, danger, and politics surrounded him, yet he stayed the same man. To him, numbers were still puzzles waiting to be solved, not treasures to be stolen. The government called for another meeting. Officials filled the large conference room, along with the team of scientists. Armin was asked to join, though he sat quietly at the far end of the table. A minister spoke first. "The attack proved what we already know. Others will stop at nothing to control this discovery. We must move fast. Either we keep the formula under complete government control, or we share it with the world on our terms." The scientists argued among themselves. Some believed sharing it would bring peace, light, and progress for all. Others warned that giving it away would create chaos, as rival nations would race to build stronger machines and weapons. Finally, Dr. Rashid turned to Armin. "You solved it? What do you think should be done?" All eyes shifted toward the janitor. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke with quiet strength. "If the formula is locked away, people will fight harder to steal it. If it is given freely, people will fight to control it. Either way, it brings conflict. The question is not what the formula is. The question is who will guide it." His words filled the room with silence. Everyone realized the truth. Knowledge itself was not the danger. Human greed was the danger. That night, while the scientists continued their debates, Armin sat in the small garden behind the center. The stars shone above, and the air was cool. Dr. Nadia joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "You speak like a leader," she said gently. "But you never asked to be one." Armin smiled faintly. "I am no leader. I only see patterns. The pattern now tells me that the world is not ready." Nadia sipped her tea. "Then what will you do?" Armin looked at the ground. I may have to hide it. Not destroy it, but keep it safe until the right time. The next day, the center received alarming news. A foreign group was planning a larger strike. Intelligence officers reported that dozens of trained men had entered the city. They carried advanced equipment and had one goal: to capture Armin alive. The building went into lockdown. Sirens echoed, gates were sealed, and soldiers lined the outer walls. Inside, panic spread. Some scientists wanted to evacuate. Others shouted that it was too late. In the middle of the storm, Armin sat in the control room, watching the maps and signals. His sharp mind saw beyond the fear. He realized the attackers would not stop, no matter how strong the guards were. If they failed once, they would return again and again. Dr. Rashid begged him to leave with a secret escort to the capital. But Armin shook his head. If I run, they will chase me forever. If I stay, they will surround this place. Neither way will end the danger. Then he made a choice that shocked them all. I will remove myself from the fight. I will hide the formula in a way no one can use without me. If they want the knowledge, they will only find half. The rest will remain locked in my mind. The scientists protested. They feared losing years of work. But Armin was firm. That night, he stayed alone in the lab, rewriting parts of the formula. With his unmatched intelligence, he split the knowledge into two parts. One was written on paper, incomplete but useful enough to keep research alive. The other part stayed in his memory, hidden from everyone. Without it, no one could use the discovery fully. By morning, he handed the incomplete version to the officials. This is enough to show progress, he said. But the final key will wait until the world is ready. His decision divided the team. Some called it wisdom. Others called it selfish. But deep inside, they all knew he was right. Too much power, given too quickly, could destroy more than it could save. Outside the walls, enemies prepared their strike. Inside, the scientists prepared to defend. But only Armin knew the truth. The full solution was now locked in the safest place possible, his own mind. The news of the second planned strike spread quickly. Soldiers guarded the research center day and night. Roads leading to the building were blocked, and helicopters circled in the sky. Yet despite all the protection, fear lived inside the walls. Everyone knew that sooner or later, the attackers would try again. Armin was calm as always. While the others spoke of weapons, walls, and security, he thought of patterns. To him, every problem had a solution, but this one was more than numbers. It was about human desire, greed, and trust. On the third night, the attack came. The sky roared with the sound of drones, and vehicles surrounded the gates. Armed men moved with precision, cutting power lines and breaking through fences. Soldiers fought bravely, but the attackers were trained and prepared. Inside the center, alarms rang. Scientists were rushed into safe rooms. Officials shouted orders through radios. In the middle of the chaos, Armin stood still, watching the monitors. He understood their moves before they made them. His mind was faster than their strategies. They are not here for the building, he said quietly. They are here for me. The guards around him tensed, ready to protect him. But Armin knew that no number of guards would stop wave after wave of people hungry for the formula. He understood that this moment was the real test. As the attackers reached the main entrance, Armin stepped forward. He raised his hand and told the guards to let him go. "Do not fight for me," he said. "If they want me, I will face them myself." The guards hesitated, but Dr. Rashid, who had rushed into the room, saw something in Armin's eyes. It was not fear. It was clarity. He nodded slowly. Armin walked to the entrance as the heavy doors shook from explosions outside. When they burst open, smoke and dust filled the hallway. Armed men rushed in, their weapons raised. But when they saw Armin standing alone, they stopped. One of them, the leader, stepped forward. His voice was hard. "You will come with us. Do not resist." Armin looked at him with calm eyes. "You believe taking me will give you power. But you are wrong. I hold only half the formula. Without me, the rest is useless." The men exchanged confused glances. The leader narrowed his eyes. "You are lying." "I do not lie," Armin replied. "The other half is locked where no one can reach but me. Even if you take me, you cannot force the truth. Knowledge cannot be stolen. It must be given freely." His voice was steady, and the words cut deeper than any weapon. The attackers hesitated. Their mission was clear, yet the man before them showed no fear. His certainty shook their confidence. Outside, soldiers regrouped. Inside, the attackers faced a choice. Some lowered their weapons, unsure if the mission was even possible. The leader grew angry. "If you will not come, then you will fall here." Armin raised his voice for the first time. "If you harm me, the secret dies with me. You will leave with nothing but shame. But if you walk away, there may still be a chance for the world to use this discovery for good." Silence filled the air. The smoke slowly cleared, and the faces of the men showed doubt. One by one, they began to step back. The leader cursed, but he too realized the truth. Killing Armin meant losing everything. Taking him by force was useless if the key remained hidden in his mind. At last, the order was given. The attackers retreated. Vehicles pulled back, drones disappeared into the night, and the sound of battle faded. Soldiers rushed inside, expecting destruction, but instead they found Armin standing calmly, untouched, while the doors lay broken around him. The scientists and officials gathered, relief flooding their faces. Dr. Nadia's eyes were wet as she whispered, "You faced them with no weapon, only truth." Armin looked at her. "Truth is stronger than force. They came for power, but power is empty when the mind refuses to give it." In the weeks that followed, the attacks stopped. The world began to realize that Armin could not be controlled. Governments respected his choice to keep the final key hidden. Scientists continued their research with the incomplete formula, enough to build safer energy but not enough to turn it into destruction. Armin returned to his quiet work. He cleaned the floors, fixed broken lights, and walked the same hallways as before. People now looked at him with respect, but he remained the same. To him, genius was not about fame or power. It was about solving problems with patience and guiding knowledge with wisdom. The world called him the janitor with a 900 IQ, the man who solved the impossible. But to himself, he was simply Armin, a man who saw patterns where others saw chaos, and who believed that knowledge must serve humanity, not control it. And so the story of the janitor who shocked all scientists became more than just a tale of intelligence. It became a lesson that true power lies not in numbers, wealth, or weapons, but in the choices of those who hold knowledge in their hands.